Good morning. All right, so just a little bit about myself. Been at Stockton a little over 12 years. Really excited to always share that. I really enjoy being here and hope to continue for many more years. I do have a certification in administering this particular assessment. You have to go through a certain training in order to be able to do what we're going to do today. So this is what we're going to go over for today. We're going to talk a little bit about the tool. I'm going to give you some background information. We're going to go over the instrument specifically. We're going to then go through a self-assessment interpretation and break down all of the information that you saw on your individual results. And hopefully at the end of all of this, you will walk away today with identifying your best fit personality type. All right, so knowing your personality, what is it going to do? What does that do for you in general? What do you guys think? How's this going to help you? So knowing yourself is going to help you understand how you prefer to do things, why that occurs, right? And hopefully it's going to give you that perspective to maybe understand why somebody else is presenting themselves a certain way, right? Hopefully to get to the point of compromise or understanding, and hopefully knowing all this will allow you to better handle stressful situations that may come up across your careers. It also can help you in your personal lives, just understanding who you are and why you do things, right? Might give you that perspective of, okay, since I know this is who I am, maybe at times I need to be a little bit more self-aware of that, or I need to be a little bit more flexible, and it will ultimately help you get along better with others. All right, so here's the thing. This was a tricky assessment, right? Couple things to keep in mind. This is not a test, okay? This is called an assessment because there is no right or wrong answer, okay? Was it tough to do? Yes, right? Because how many choices were you given with each question? 2 choices, right? You were given 2 choices. So you had to pick one or the other, right? There was no middle ground like you might see in some other assessments. And so it was tough because I know at times you were thinking, well, sometimes I do this and sometimes I do this. When I'm at work, I'm like this. When I'm at school, I'm like this, right? Kind of ring a bell to anybody when you took that assessment. And we're going to talk about that theme throughout this entire presentation. Everything that you saw in that assessment and everything we talk about today, you are all of those things. But this assessment is designed a very specific way to help you narrow down what is your go-to preference, okay? So you're going to be hearing that word preference a lot. You're going to want to feel comfortable that you are everything that we talk about today, but what we're trying to do is dig down to figure out which one feels most natural to you, okay? And we talk about that again in terms of preferences. Everybody has unique preference characteristics, and it shows its way in a lot of different symbols in your life, right? And so we're going to talk about that. And so here's just a little bit of background. It's important for us to go over this before we get into actual assessment and doing some of the fun activities. You need to know where this theory came from. And it came from a psychologist named Carl Jung. He was the developer of personality type. You might be taking intro to psych or some other psych classes during your time here at Stockton, and you further explore this a little bit. But the MBTI was developed on the basis of this particular theory. So he believed a couple of things, and this breaks down into the 4 preference pairs we're going to talk about. The first 2 that we're going to talk about is that he believed that every person carries out 2 mental processes. So that is how they take in information and then how they use that information to make decisions. So we're going to talk about that within each of you, okay? And those are the middle 2 letters of the 4 type preference. Okay. He also observed 2 things, that we live in our inner world and our outer world, right? So that inner world is our own personal thoughts, beliefs, what happens internally, and the outer world is externally. What do we get to see and how you go through your life. What do we observe in the things around you and us as people and part of that world with you? Okay, so this was the foundation for his theory, which led to the different preference pairs, and he broke them down into these 4 areas. And one of the leading principles of this theory is the notion of nature versus nurture, right? So what do we believe that to be? You may have heard this along the way. What's nature versus nurture? How would you describe that? Yeah.
That depending on the type of, I guess, environment you're raised in, you come out a certain way versus being like a nurturing parent versus being left to your own devices.
Right, absolutely. So it's that notion of you are who you are because that's just naturally inborn, right? Or are there some exterior influences maybe throughout the people that you grew up with in your home, right? Because they fold their sheets a certain way. Did you start folding your sheets that way, right? So were you influenced from some of those external factors, right? And this is a really big piece of this theory because, again, I'm going to be talking about the 4 preference pairs, right? And you're going to feel very connected to all of the things that I describe, right? And you are going to say those things to yourself. Well, I am like this when I'm doing a school project with others, and I am like this when I'm at work, but when I'm at home, I act like this, right? That's going to come natural to you throughout this conversation. What we're going to try and do is remove some of those factors of the environment that you're in that may dictate how you behave, right? And we're going to try to get down into that most natural state of who you are. Some of these external factors weren't a part of you behaving or making a decision a certain way. Where would you be at the end of that, right? And that's that whole notion of nature versus nurture. So what I want to do is emphasize this point a bit further through an activity I'm going to present to you right now. So you're getting a piece of paper on the first side where it says the types. What I'd like you to do on the first line that says number 1, go ahead and write your signature. All right, so how would you describe to me writing your signature? What are some words that you would use to describe that experience?
Cursive.
What?
Cursive.
Cursive.
Fluid.
Fluid.
Quick.
Quick. What else?
Repetitive.
Repetitive. Confused. Okay. What I'd like you to do with your non-dominant hand, go ahead and write your signature on line 2. All right. So share with me some words that would describe that experience. Horrible.
Sloppy.
Sloppy.
Dysfunction.
What was the word in the back?
Never again.
Never again. Dysfunction. What else?
Illegible.
Illegible. All right. Did it take a little bit more time to maybe do the signature second round, right? Yes. Raise your hand high and with pride if you have something on line 2. Something, anything, right? So here's the thing. Nature versus nurture, right? It felt uncomfortable. It took a little bit more mental energy, right, to do that. It was sloppy. It's not pretty. But what happened at the end of this exercise? Everybody in this room had something on line 2, right? So this goes back to that notion of nature versus nurture, right? Exercise 1 was natural. It was our go-to. We didn't have to think about it. It was quick. It was easy. It was perfect, right? Second time around, took a little bit more time. It wasn't pretty. We had to really think about it. We had to mentally go through that process, but there was something on the paper, right? So I want you to keep this exercise in mind as we talk about the 4 preference pairs. Again, that notion of you are everything that we're talking about today. You absolutely can do something, right? You can use that influence of nurture, right? And push yourself to act a different way or make a decision a different way. You can get there, absolutely. But if some of those external factors are removed, what's your most natural state, okay? And then we're going to keep that in mind as we talk about these 4 preference pairs and we define them. I'm always going to ask you at the end of each explanation and exercise, what do you feel your preference is? Because you are the keeper of this of your own type. So that's why it's important to hear a little bit more about how these words are defined when we talk about preference or personality type, because it is different. It relates to the mental processes from the personality theory and the two worlds that we live in. And we're going to break those things down, okay? So is everyone ready to get started? Yep. Yes, nature versus nurture in the back of our minds? So let's start with extroversion and introversion. Okay, so when we hear the word extroversion, what do we automatically think of? How would you define that word?
Outgoing.
Outgoing?
Yeah, someone that's not afraid.
Someone who's not afraid. Okay, good. Introversion. How do you define that word when you hear it?
Timid.
Timid, quiet, right? A lot of people associate that maybe with shy, okay? Those could be components of how we use the words related to the MBTI, but really I want to break those notions apart a little bit. And we're not going to use the words exactly the way that you would get the definitions from the dictionary. This really refers to how do you get your energy, okay? And so what do we mean by that? How do we get our energy? Our extroversion preferences tend to be energized by other people and external experiences. Our introversion preferences tend to be energized by internal resources, internal experiences, being in their own self-reflection. Okay, so let me give you an example of this. Raise your hands high if you ever presented in front of a class. Right? Everybody. So we're coming from this common place of having to stand up in front of an audience, right, and give a presentation on a topic. It looks a little different, though, for introversion and extroversion preferences. The experience of delivering a presentation and engaging the audience for both of these preferences could look the same. They give a dynamic presentation. They engage the audience. Everybody's really excited about the topic, and the presenter gets an A, whether it's an extroversion preference or an introversion preference. But how it looks different is at the end of that experience, right? Our extroversion preferences are energized by external people. Our introversion preferences are energized by internal reflection, right? So what does it look like? Our extroversion preferences, after a dynamic presentation, engaged an audience, they're walking back to their seats, high-fiving everybody with a lot of energy and excitement, and they're ready to move on to the next thing for the day. And they want to keep that energy going, right? Because they were engaged with all these people around them, and that built up their energy. What it looks like for an introversion preference, they are going back to their seat and they're saying, nobody talked to me for the rest of the day. I just exerted all of my energy right out into this audience and delivered a dynamic presentation, which isn't my go-to thing to do. I can do it and I was successful, right? But it took a lot of mental energy for me to do that. So I need to recharge in my quiet space and a little self-reflection for the rest of the day. Okay, so here we have our extroversion preferences tend to act, then reflect. Our introversion preferences tend to reflect, then act. Raise your hand high if you ever worked in a group environment before. Right? So we've all done that. We're coming from this common place again. So what does it look like? A faculty member in a class gives you a topic, says break out into small groups and figure out this problem. Okay, what does it look like? Our extroversion preferences get into that group and they're literally thinking and talking at the exact same time. Our introversion preferences may be sitting back, reflecting on that content, thinking through some ideas, listening to the conversation before they feel that it's time to interject their thoughts. Okay, so they need that time of self-reflection, internal processing in order to bring that to the table. So our extroversion preferences, some may say they give a breath of life, and our introversion preferences gives depth of life. So what does this look like? So our extroversion preferences could have large numbers of groups of friends, lots of different pockets, right? They're all over the place. They might have many interests. They have their hands in a lot of different activities and things going on in their world because they're energized by all of those things happening. Our introversion preferences may have fewer groups of friends, but really deep connections and long-lasting relationships, right? And they might have fewer interests, but they dig deep into them. So they know all aspects of that interest. It covers in a variety of different ways in their life. Okay. Again, this is not to say our extroversion preferences don't have deep relationships and connections with people. They absolutely do, right? But just think about it from that broader perspective. A lot of different relationships and things happening around them. Okay, so remember, this is how do you get your energy? Are you energized by external things happening around you and people and activity? Or are you energized by self-reflection and quiet time and internal space? So here's a couple words that I've said throughout the descriptions just to again give you how we're using extroversion and introversion through the MBTI. So our extroversion is, again, outward, people, interaction, many, right? Introversions tend to be private, quiet. They tend to think before they speak, things like that. So let's get into a little activity that will help us figure out even further for an extroversion or introversion preference, okay? And so what I'd like you to do, you don't have to move your seats, but maybe the person next to you or person behind you, talk for a few minutes and describe how you would like to spend an evening with friends, or how you spend an evening with friends. All right, so let's talk about this. Are there a couple people that may want to share with us what a typical night is like? Describe an evening out with friends. Go ahead.
We all talked about the same thing. We kind of just wanted to do like a night in with our friends, like maybe do like self-care, drink some wine, like watch a movie, order food. Yeah.
Okay, great. So you hear some things that may feel little introversion, right? Where you're not external, out at a restaurant with other people, right? You're at home and it feels like a more quiet and relaxed evening, okay? So that might tie into some of the things that we see with the introversion preferences, but also think about beyond that, right? How many people are you hanging out with? Are they all the same friends, or you have people from different pockets of your world coming together, right? Within that environment, are you the person that's the leader of that environment and keeps the conversation going, right? So are some of these preferences a part of that experience? Right, so be thinking about that as well, because this is a continuum, okay? It's not all one or all of the other. Okay, what else? Anybody else doing anything fun? Yeah?
Go to shows, so like dance.
Like performances, like theater? Is that what you're?
I like to go out and dance.
Oh, you like to go out and dance. Okay, I thought you said you like to go to shows. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, like shows. Like
Okay. Concerts and things like that, right? So we're hearing some things of being around others, interacting with people, out there, action, some of the things that are very similar or connect to the extroversion description here, right? But even in that environment, you may enjoy to do those things, right? But what does it look like at the end of that experience? You had a great time being at a concert and engaged with other people. 30,000 people, 40,000 people, and that was awesome and you enjoyed it. But what happens at the end of that experience? Do you now need to go into that quiet space of being alone and some self-reflection in order to get your energy back up, right? So I guess wanted to play that devil's advocate piece just so, again, you don't think it's all one or nothing, right? We're talking about this continuum. So what I like to do, having defined what extroversion and introversion mean in relation to the MBTI, which is how do you get your energy, right? Looking at these words that are associated with them, thinking through your preference of how you would spend an evening with friends. What I like to do now is on the bottom sheet, in the bottom of the sheet, excuse me, in this box where it says self-assessment type, what you will do is indicate on the first line if you are an E or an I preference, if you're able to decide right now. On the line underneath it where it says indicator type, those can be the letter, you could put the letters down from the online assessment, okay? And then we'll continue to fill out each of these along the way. All right, so the next two preference pairs we're going to talk about that mental process component. How do you like to take in information, and how do you make decisions, okay? So the first one we're going to talk about is how do you take in information. And we refer to the two options here as preference pairs as sensing and intuition, right? And remember, it's a continuum. And we're going to try and see if you can identify your preference in terms of how you take in information. So what do we mean by this? Okay, here's a couple of images and some information. So our sensing preferences tend to prefer to handle practical matters, where intuition preferences tend to prefer what could be imaginative, present big ideas. Our sensing preferences tend to read instructions and notice details, where our intuition preferences tend to skip directions and follow hunches, right? So let's think about this, for example. What's unique about IKEA furniture?
You put it together.
You have to put it together, right? What kind of instructions come with it?
A lot.
What? Swedish instructions, right? And so you can't read it, right? And it's images. So let's think about maybe how you would put together a piece of furniture, whether it's IKEA or not, right? So our sensing preferences, that experience might look like this. It might be opening the box and getting out the instructions. It might be reading the instructions from front to back. It might be going a step further and looking at some YouTube videos of how other people put together that piece, right? And it's going to be emptying the contents of the box and maybe putting pieces in order of size, color, shape, things like that, right? Before they get started. Our intuition preferences, what does that experience of putting furniture together look like for them? It may look like emptying the contents of the box, putting the instruction sheets to the side, right? And propping up a beautiful picture. And then getting started to work, right? Because they just intuitively know where the pieces go, right? And they will figure it out based on hunches and previous knowledge that they're bringing to the table, okay? So a couple other things about our sensing preferences. They prefer established routine and order, where intuition preferences are more okay with change and variety and flexibility, okay? So a couple words that are associated with sensing and intuition is facts, realistic, procedure, order, practical, what is, right? Very concrete information. Our intuition folks are big picture, ideas, what could be, possibilities, change, futuristic, okay? I have an activity that will help us look at this, again, how you like to take in information, but it is going to require a little bit of movement of you guys. So let me explain it first before we get moving. So what I'm going to ask for you to do is to put whatever you think you are now. If you think you're a sensing preference, what I'm going to ask you to do is go towards the back of that whiteboard over there. And if you are an intuition preference, I'm going to ask you to come here. What I need you to do when I ask you to move is to stay close to each other, because it's a quick activity and it's a group think exercise, so you can't be too far apart. You need to be able to hear each other. I need to ask someone to be a note taker, okay, so please identify that person as well. And then that person will also share with us your response. Okay, so our sensing preferences are back there, intuition preferences over here, note taker, and stand up and be close to each other, and then we'll get started. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an image up on the screen. I'm only going to give you about 30 seconds to take a look at it, and I'm going to ask you to describe the image, okay? So you can look at it for a couple seconds, and then I'll take it away and you can go ahead and build your list. All right, so let's take a pause. What we'll do is share how each preference describe the image. So we have our sensing over here, right, and our intuition over here. So let's start with sensing. Describe this image.
We said painting, war, George Washington, a cannon, blue sky, American flag, partnership, fashion, history, white chair, blue jacket or blue coat, and then British.
Perfect. Okay, so what did we hear? Facts, realistic, right? You can't get more realistic than painting, right? So we hear some very concrete, specific, practical words that would describe that image, okay? The last word you said was?
British.
British, okay. Go ahead.
So we have tree, war, agreement, plan, old, adventure, official, George Washington, and white hair.
Right, very good. So what happened here, right? After tree, say the next 4 words for me.
War, agreement, plan, and old.
War, agreement, plan, and old, right? What could be happening? They're imagining those possibilities. They're using their hunches to describe what could be, right? So it's a very different lens of how do you like to take in information. That bigger picture is what they see first. They can't, it's not that they can't see and get to the sensing preferences. Remember, they can, right? Because we heard tree. And what do we hear? White something? George Washington, white hair, right? And if we let you folks linger on a little bit longer, right? We have British, potentially, could be war, right? We don't really know. There's some possibilities that go along with your responses as well, but your go-to was that practical, factual, concrete information. That's what you saw first, okay? So you guys can go ahead, back to your seats. Thank you very much. So based on that exercise, remember this is your preference of how you prefer to take in information. Here are again the words that are associated with those preferences. Just because your preference is sensing can't mean you're not a creative and idea person. You absolutely are, right? But this refers to how do you prefer to take in information? What's your go-to? What feels natural to you? And if you can at this stage, based on those examples, that activity and the words that are presented up here, go ahead and identify for yourself your preference when it comes to how do you prefer to take in information. Are you a sensing preference or an intuition preference? And we use the letters S and N for this pair. All right, we doing good? Moving along? Okay, we got 2 more to go. So the next one that we're going to talk about is the second part of the mental process. So that's thinking and feeling. That's the 2 preference pairs that we use to describe how do you prefer to take it, or how do you prefer to make decisions, okay? And so we use T and F, thinking and feeling. And so what does this look like in terms of how do you make decisions, okay? So this one refers to the thinking preference, stepping away from the people involved, right? And looking at making a decision as an onlooker from that perspective of being removed from the person or from the people involved. Our feeling preferences tend to make decisions from within the people, being side by side with them, looking at it through their lens and their perspective. They tend to be very empathetic folks as well, Okay, so it's a big distinction. Again, how do you prefer to make decisions? Is it from stepping away from the situation, looking at the details and the facts and being objective, right? That's your go-to when you are challenged with making a decision? Or do you tend to step right into the people who are being affected by the decision that's being made and looking at from their perspective, and that's what drives you to make your decisions, right? And so this is a really tough one for people when we talk about how do you make decisions, because a lot of people get conflicted with, oh my gosh, if I'm not feeling, that means I'm not a kind person or I'm not empathetic, right? That's not what this is saying at all, right? It's just looking at what drives you in making your decisions. Are you able, in most cases, is your go-to, is your natural space to step away from the people that are involved, right? And use that concrete information to drive your decision making? Or is your go-to always, I need to be in it with the people and how this is going to affect them directly, and then I base my decision making around that, right? And we're faced with these kind of questions every day. So how many people here have had a part-time job? Anywhere, right? Absolutely. So you're faced with moving through your work under the guidance and principles of your company. They dictate to you how things are supposed to be done. And you might over time come with a conflict, you know, with a customer or a colleague, and presented with a situation where you might have to make a decision, right? And so is your way to manage that, thinking through the lens of feeling really comfortable of removing yourself from the people involved and going strictly by the rules and the policies of the organization, right? Or you tend to be the person that might dip into the people specifically who are being affected by this, and in that case, you know, how does that drive maybe you not complying with the company policy or doing what you can to find another angle to help the people that are involved in that particular situation, right? So it's very complex. A couple of other things that would dictate the thinking and the feeling preferences. Our thinking preferences tend to be really analytical. Again, they're able to take that step back, look at the big picture, and think of a process to get there, right? Decisions along the way to help reach a goal, a bigger goal. A feeling preferences, they tend to be good at understanding people, right? This could be great team leaders and coaches and supervisors along the way that really help people reach the best of what they can be, right? So we're looking at both of these from that lens of these are people in leadership roles, right? So we know that our thinking preferences are big picture. They need to run a department or a company, and they need to be analytical and make tough decisions along the way. And our feeling people are also leaders, and they get there by, they're driven by the decisions that they make related to the people that are involved in their situations. So here are a couple of words that are associated with thinking and feeling, right? So some of them I've already said along the way, but you can see them again. What I'd like to do is another exercise that will tie this one together for you all. But for this one, I need a handful of volunteers. I need 3 thinking preferences and 3 feeling preferences. It only works if we have volunteers. So who's going to help me out? What are you?
Feeling.
Okay.
Feeling.
Okay, 3 feelings, come on up. I need 3 thinking. One more thinking preference. Do we have one more thinking preference? Thank you. Perfect. Okay, so what I'm going to ask is the 3 feeling preferences to go out in the hallway for a moment. Don't overhear our conversation if you can. Thank you. All right, so what is going to happen is I'm going to put a scenario up on the screen and talk to you 3 about it, okay? What you 3 are going to do is talk together collectively, right, to make a decision, and I just need you to talk loud enough so we can hear you. You don't have to talk to us. You can talk amongst yourselves, but we want to observe your behaviors, okay? So here's the scenario. The three of you are coaches to an All-Star Little League team. They made it to the All-Stars series, which is going to take place in Orlando, Florida. So congratulations. You should be really proud of yourselves as coaches, okay? You have 20 12-year-olds on your team, but you can only bring 15 of them to the All-Star game and put them on your roster. Talk to us about how you would decide what 15 players will make it onto your final roster.
I'm gonna crush some hearts today. All right. I would I don't know if it's messed up, but I would go like performance-wise. You know, like,
Yeah, the best ones.
Best ones, how would you define best ones and performance?
A skill level, yeah.
yeah.
Skill level, and how would you
Overall
assess their
performance.
skill level?
Just make a decision.
Well,
right?
since
Their
it's like
performance
towards
through
the end of the season, yeah. So
Mhm.
like,
Like stats. Yeah. How they played.
Okay, we hear stats, tryouts, right, based on performance and skills. Okay.
potentially, you know, some of them might not be able to make it, so we have that option as well.
Maybe look at how they also interact with the team, like if they bring
Right.
a lot to the table, or if they're those kids that maybe wouldn't do good on a travel
Right.
Right, yeah. tournament.
We could also
Right.
like, I don't know, just leave it up to them too. You know, give them the option to, you know, have their friend or whatnot pass through.
Okay.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Because
Okay.
then it comes down to like, you're really just like, you can't come, but you can come, you know? You don't want really crushing hearts.
Okay, and we'll talk about this more after we hear from the next group. Thank you very much. But let's keep in mind the first few things that they said, right? How would you make a decision to cut your roster by 5 people, 12-year-olds? We went to performance and skills, which is going to be identified through tryouts and statistical information, right? So keep that in mind as we observe the next group. All right. So what I'm going to do, ladies, in just a minute is present you with a scenario. And we're going to ask you to work collectively to talk through how you would make a decision. We don't need you to talk directly to us, but just loud enough so we can hear your thought process. Okay? So the scenario is that you are coaches to an all-star Little League baseball team, and your team made it to the World Series event in Orlando, Florida. So congratulations. You should be really proud of yourselves. You have 20 12-year-olds on your team, but you can only bring 15 on your final roster to compete in the World Series event. Talk to us about how you would decide which 15 members will go with you to the World Series.
Who are the best players?
I would do best, but I also would do those who attend practice.
Yeah.
Because attendance is huge.
Talk a little louder. Those that attend practice, attendance is huge.
I would say, but players who are good, but I wouldn't necessarily choose the best players over the kids that attended practice and like genuinely
Right,
tried.
yeah. I think that if they did attend practice, if they were good, they didn't have the right to go.
I feel like I
Exactly.
would look at who we played for most of the season. I mean, like, no
Yeah.
offense, but you're not going to play your bench warmers at the World Series.
Yeah, very. But I do think that statistically, like that would be based
Chances
on-
are those kids
Yeah.
showed up at practice, otherwise
Yeah.
they wouldn't have been played.
Exactly.
I agree with that
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's it.
So final decisions are made on those that attended practice, those that played well with others, right? Is that what I heard? Okay, so then let's take it the next step. How would you tell the 5 12-year-olds who didn't make the roster they didn't make it?
I would let them know that they okay, you didn't attend practice, you are not showing this much effort, therefore you did not earn the right to go. But also, I don't really know.
I don't think I'd put focus on letting them know they're not coming because they didn't attend practice. I think I'd sit down with all 20, however many kids you said, and be like, look, we can only take 15 of you. And, you know, it was a tough decision, but we had to go with the people who were most valuable to the team for this trip. You're not off the team. You're just not
Alright.
coming.
Good.
I would definitely push the they shouldn't give up and this shouldn't make them think they're not good enough for the sport because it's not that they're not good enough.
There's always like another year.
Yeah,
Because,
exactly.
You know.
Exactly.
Awesome. Great. Thank you very much. Okay. So what did we hear from this group?
It seemed like they were really empathetic in their decision, thinking about the kids and like not, you know, like how they're gonna let them go.
Right. Absolutely. So really for us, and thank you everybody who participated, I appreciate you stepping up to do that. It goes back to this image, right, when we do this exercise. Remember the question is, what's your preference in how you make decisions, right? So our thinking preferences, they were from the outside as an onlooker, right? Their decisions were driven by performance and skills, which was identified by statistics and tryouts, right? Our feeling preferences, seeing things from the participants, from within the situation, right? Their criteria was those that get along well with others, right? Those that showed up to practice and showed a commitment to the team, okay? So their criteria obviously was slightly different than the thinking preference. Now what's going to happen, we did let this linger a little bit in the feeling, right? And we started to hear a little bit, you know, about skills, right? And so that may call into the scenario as well, but it's not where they went first, and that's okay. Okay, so be thinking about how you make decisions, what drives you, right? Detached things, objective, analytical, firm but fair, right? Do you lead with your heart, people, subjective, empathetic, understanding, right? The feeling preferences. If you're able to, you know, think about those examples. Think about that exercise that we just went through. And for those that didn't participate, how would you have made that decision, right? What criteria would you have used? Look at these words, and if you're able to, go ahead and identify for yourself if you are able to, if you're a T or an F preference. So we have one more preference pair to review, right? And this is referring to the outer world, what we get to see. How do you live your life? So this is externally the movement through people, places, and things, and tends to be with what others observe. So we refer to this as judgment and perception, okay? And so let's define this, your preference on how do you live your life. So our judgment preferences prefer defined routine, order, and structure, right? Our perception preferences tend to go with the flow, right? Like prefer a little bit more movement and not so structured. So our judgment preferences feel comfortable with closure, structure, definitions. Our perception preferences feel comfortable with maintaining openness, being fluid, right? Seeing what possibilities could be. Okay, so let me give you a couple of examples here. So in terms of preferring order and structure versus go with the flow, okay? On the first day of every class, what does your faculty member give you?
Syllabus.
Right, and on that syllabus, what is included?
Everything we're doing for the year.
All of your projects, right? It could be descriptions of the projects. It could be dates when they're due, right? Exam dates, things like that, right? So here's the difference. A judgment preference who prefers structure and order goes through that semester and gets an A. A perception preferences who prefers to go with the flow goes through that semester and gets an A. Awesome, right? Everybody achieved that goal. But how they got there looks a little different. So our judgment preferences may feel more comfortable with getting that syllabus and going to their paper calendar or their online calendar and start putting in those dates, right? They might take it a step further and say if this project is due on December 15th, I want to have all my research done by October 15th. I want to have my first draft done by November 15th. I want to have the printed copy ready to go by December 1st, right? They really are connecting with that structure in order to get to where they want to be, which is that A for this semester, right? Remember, our perception preference also got an A in that course for this semester, but how they got there looked a little different. They didn't feel the need to go and jot down all the due dates on a paper calendar or an online calendar, right? They didn't need to create those benchmarks along the way when research needed to be done or first draft. It might have looked a little bit like, oh, my 10:30 was canceled today. Maybe I'll go to the library and I'll pull some articles for that research project I have in class, right? Or, oh, I think today I'm going to work on maybe putting together the first couple pages of my project, right? They didn't have it necessarily mapped out, but they delivered that paper and they went through the semester effectively and they got an A for it. But it looked really different than our judgment preference of how they got there. What might happen also in the middle of the semester or at the end of the class? You didn't get through all the work that you needed to for that class, so a faculty member might present an unexpected project, reflection paper, homework assignment, right? And it's just casually mentioned at the end of the class. So what does that look like for a judgment preference and a perception preference? It might be the middle of the semester, so you kind of know the faculty's style, but our judgment preference doesn't feel really comfortable with just the information that was presented to them. So a hand may go up, or you might reach out to the faculty member after. How many pages did you want it? Do you want it typed? Do you want me to upload it to Blackboard? Do you want it printed? What's the angle of the narrative, right? There's a lot more questions because you don't feel like you have closure in them just saying a last minute project that's due or paper that needs to be done. Where our perception preferences might feel like, oh, well, that's enough. You know, I have the topic. I know when it's due. I'll just move forward with, the style that I've been writing for the other classes, other papers for that particular class, right? And they feel a little bit more comfortable in that open-ended space, okay? Another thing, right? Our judgment preferences handle deadlines, plans in advance. Our perception preferences tend to be more last minute, right? Maybe always even late to the game, but they show up, okay? So this again goes back to that syllabus perspective, right? How do you go through your semester? Are you mapping everything out? Is that your go-to if that feels is that what's comfortable to you? Or are you more of going with the flow? I'll do it the night before. I still have an hour and a half before class, right? And you get it done then. Okay? Again, everybody goes through the semester effectively. Everybody gets A's, but the process to get there looks really different for the two preference types. So again, our judging preferences and our perceiving preference words, okay, doesn't mean you're a judgy person, right? But it does mean that you are deliberate and intentional. You prefer to plan and be structured. You prefer closure and order, right? Where our perceiving preferences tend to be more spontaneous and later, and it's okay to wait, and they tend to be a little bit more on the flexible side of things, okay? So I have another activity. This one we can do collectively as a class, but I do ask that you raise your hand so I can get as many opinions as possible. So I want to talk about planning spring break, okay? It's now December, spring break is in March. I want to ask a couple of people where you are in the planning of spring break as of today in December. Done, not done, on the mind, not on the mind? Where are you at?
Not done.
Not done, but you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Thinking about it, but not done.
We're already booked.
Already booked, right? It's done. So it's how many months away now? 4 months away. And it's already completely booked, paid for, you're good to go. Okay.
Not even remotely anywhere near.
Not even a thought in my head. Got it.
About to be booked.
About to be booked. So you're kind of a little bit in the
It's
process.
decided. I'm just waiting to pay for it.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So some decisions are made. So we heard the 4 months, that's like ridiculous. Why would I be thinking about spring break now? I got so much time. Or maybe I'm mulling it over, right? But nothing's done yet. Or I kind of did my research, I'm just about to book and pay for it, to it's already done, right? Now we come back, it's a new semester, it's February 1st, we're 6 weeks before spring break. Where are we in the planning process? Where are you?
February 1st.
6 weeks before spring break.
I'll just be getting back. I'll only be back in the state for like 2 weeks at that point. I don't book trips ahead of time.
So still not thinking about it.
Yeah.
Some people are still not thinking about it. Our trip that has already been booked and paid for 4 months, where are you 6 weeks before your trip? What are you doing?
Waiting for it.
What?
Just waiting for it to come.
Waiting for it to come. Okay, anybody else? About 6 weeks before. All right, so what are we doing the night before spring break? We're packing. Okay, what else? Booked trip, what are you doing?
Packing my bag hours before I leave.
Hours before, okay.
Itinerary.
Printing out itinerary, right? Absolutely. Is anybody already packed the night before? Everything already printed, ready to go. Okay. What's that week look like? Okay. Do we have an itinerary? Do we have restaurants booked? Do we have excursions booked? Yes, no? No. What else? Anybody have a daily plan?
Keep your mind off it.
Right? Go ahead.
I have a question though, because like I am like a planner,
Mm-hmm.
but like when I like to take trips, I don't like to plan like things I do on the trip. I like to kind of wing it.
Yep. So that goes back to that notion again of at your go-to, if all those external factors would be removed, would you prefer to live your life from that space of not having that plan or structure, right? It's okay, you know, in different environments if it looks different, but what's your go-to? Okay. And remember, this is a continuum. All of these things are a continuum, right? So you could be right in the middle, and that's okay. Just can you inch yourself one way or the other, right? So let's just take this notion of planning a vacation, planning a spring break from 4 months until the day of. What does that experience look like for you? Does it feel more of the judging preferences where you prefer order, control, structure well in advance, right? To get there? Or is it more perceiving preferences where you're flexible, options, maybe later, more spontaneous, right? What's that look like? So go ahead for yourself if you can to identify if you are a J or a P preference. All right, so is everyone there? Everyone have something down on their self-assessment, right? Okay, and you all have something from the indicator type. What we're gonna do now is try and figure out what your best fit type is, right? So you may find that the letters on both the online assessment and the interpretation today are exactly the same. You could probably feel pretty confident that that's your best fit type. But you might have 1 or 2 letters that are off because after further hearing the explanation of how the indicator is using the words, you may have connected with something that I described today, right? And that's okay too. What I like you to do is on the back of that page, there's little blurbs that would give you an overview of that personality type. And go ahead if you again have the match, read that type if it feels good to you. That's probably your type. If you want to read some others, you can do that. If you have 1 or 2 letters that are off, go ahead and read both those types and see if you can indicate which one you're more connected to, right? And then that one you will call your best fit type. So what we're trying to do at this stage is to take all of this information that was presented, right? And for ourselves, define which personality type is our best fit. What does this all mean now that we know our best fit personality type?
better understanding of who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are you guys thinking you want to do after you graduate? What are your career goals, interests? Nursing?
I want to be a doctor.
Doctor?
Physician's assistant.
Physician's assistant, right? So there's quite a few of you that feel that you're going to engage with patients, right? So think about this through that lens. If I am in a helping career where I'm with patients, how is it knowing this information about my personality type, right? In terms of how I prefer to take in information, in terms of if you are an S or an N, right? If you're an N, maybe you need to pull back a little bit when you're describing information to your patients who are an S. They might need that more concrete, specific, factual information, right? So be thinking about that, knowing your preference type and how to be more flexible when it comes to the work that you do to get the results that you want to get, right? And being aware of other preference types so you can be mindful of that and be more flexible along the way. Think about if you have to motivate patients, right? If you're an I or an E preference, right? So motivating a patient working in a one-on-one environment, right? So maybe if your patient's an I preference, they need some more time to get acclimated with you or their environment around them before they feel more comfortable, moving forward through that experience. So, these are just a couple of small examples, but be thinking about all of this and hopefully you can take it with you, as you progress professionally. Here's just another slide that indicates across the United States how we break down as a country in terms of type and percentage of folks that are within each type and how they would be described. Any other last minute thoughts, questions, comments?
Please join me in thanking Dana for being here.
Of course, thank you. My pleasure.